So before calling the meeting to order, there's a few housekeeping items to cover, and I expect there may be a few more coming in. So in the event of an emergency, there are two exits from council chambers, one through the big gaping hole at the back, which leads to the main hallway, and with exits to the front and the back of the building, and one to my right through the door behind the municipal clerk's desk. Our muster point is out front in the plaza. This room is also equipped with two panic buttons. Washrooms are out the back door at the end of the hallway to your left. This meeting will be live streamed and recorded for public viewing. Anyone making a presentation or approaching the council dais or administration table will appear on camera. We ask that you please turn your cell phones on silent. I do recognize that this is a very charged topic for many, and so I do ask for decorum. This is a council business meeting. Any interruptions will not be allowed and will not be tolerated. And so, with that, still hearing people coming in, I will call to order special meeting of council for Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, I acknowledge that we are gathered in the heart of Treaty 7 territory of Southern Alberta. If I could just ask someone to please quiet
those kids down.
Yeah. So pardon me, I acknowledge that we're gathered in the heart of Treaty 7 territory of Southern Alberta. This land is home to the Blackfoot Confederacy, consisting of the Siksika, Kainai, and Bakani First Nations, also the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and our most adjacent Indigenous neighbors, the Stoney Nakoda, comprised of the Bearspaw, Goodstoney, and Chiniki First Nations. Further, we are located within the Métis Nation of Alberta, District 4. The town of Canmore is committed to working to live in right relations and to advance truth and reconciliation as we acknowledge the many Indigenous peoples whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations. I'm grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. As we are all treaty people, we each have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor all life. Turning now to the agenda, I move that we, is there any changes? No. I move that we approve the agenda for October 24th, 2023, special meeting of council as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Now we'll move to the business item for today, G1, bylaw approval. Three Sisters Mountain Village Partners Limited Litigation, Alberta Court of Appeal decision on appeal from the Land and Property Rights Tribunal regarding the Smith Creek and Three Sisters Village area structure plans. And before getting to the administrative report, I will be turning to a few councillors who have something to say. Councillor McCallum.
Thank you, Your Worship. As many know, I have previously declared a potential pecuniary interest under the Municipal Government Act in Council's discussion and decision on appealing the LPRT decisions to the Court of Appeal due to being named in a legal action in the Court of King's Bench. Today's meeting is to implement the LPRT decisions due to the Court of Appeal's decision. The legal action in the Court of King's Bench in which I am named remains open. I will be abstaining from any discussion of this matter and leaving the room until any discussion and voting are concluded. And can the clerk please note my declaration and abstention in the minutes? I want to send all of my colleagues that are remaining strength and support.
Thank you, Councillor McCallum. Councillor Mara.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillor. I too, as previously stated by Councillor McCallum, will be abstaining from any discussions of this matter and leaving the room. And could the clerk please note my declaration in absence?
Thank you. Councillor Hillstad.
I will be echoing the same exact thing. I will be abstaining from any discussion of this matter and leaving the room until any discussion and voting has concluded. And can clerk please note my declaration abstention in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. All right, I'll now call upon Mr. Dryzik. for the report.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Adam Driedzik, Town Solicitor. Couple of preliminary items. I noticed that there was a typo in the subject line of the agenda item that got picked up when it was getting read into the record by the mayor. The word partners should be properties, so I just asked that the clerk correct that in the minutes. The other item, just to clarify, the councillors who just recused himself, that's for a pecuniary interest declaration under the Municipal Government Act. I'm not sure how well that came through in their individual statements, but the record will show that as the reason for their previous recusals, and that pecuniary interest under the MGA should be captured in the minutes as their reasons there. As far as the substance here, this is a report on the outcome of the town's appeal to the Court of Appeal from the decisions of the Land and Property Rights Tribunal concerning the two area structure plans brought by TSM Bell and VPL to Council in 2021. The recommendations are to adopt both area structure plans and some consequential amendments to the municipal development plan through a series of council motions on bylaw readings. The background is in the report. In summary, the town's appeal was dismissed. The court's reasons were clear that the court's role is not to decide whose views are right or wrong on questions of development. This was a statutory appeal on questions of law and jurisdiction. Much of the decision of the court turned on the standard of review of reasonableness in the Land and Property Rights Tribunal Act. That resulted in the court giving judicial deference to the tribunal and finding no reviewable errors on the part of the tribunal. So here we are asking for both ASPs and the MDP amendments to be adopted. The town cannot and should not attempt to appeal any further. The town has agreed not to attempt appeal to the SCC if its appeal to the Court of Appeal was dismissed. And in any event, this decision from the Court of Appeal leaves no reasonable prospect of success at obtaining leave to appeal to the SCC. So we're before you today. Council must adopt both ASPs and the consequential amendments to the MDP that administration is recommending be done today as well. The town needs council to do this. These decisions need to be made, these adoptions need to be made through bylaws. It's not something the administration can do, and council has the legal duties and holds the town's legal duties to make that happen. This isn't a typical matter where council has discretion. On account of Section 619 of the MGA, there are no public hearings. This is an order from the Land and Property Rights Tribunal that we as the town are charged with implementing. Financial impacts are in the report. There's remaining capital project funds. They will be needed to resolve the matter of court costs in the Court of Appeal decision that was just rendered and to wind down a number of remaining litigations, some which should be rendered moot if the ASPs are adopted and some which remain open at this time. But in any event, the most efficient way to bring as much of that as possible to conclusion and to reallocate our organizational resources is to adopt these ASPs. That's it from me, subject to any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Driedzik. Looking to council, see if there are any questions. There's none, thank you very much. All right, so we've got a number of motions are to be made. One is with respect to the Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan bylaw. The second is with regards to the Smith Creek Area Structure Plan bylaw. And the last is amendments to the municipal development plan that arise from those changes. Rather than speaking to each of those motions, and there will be 12 in total, we're going to speak to the motions now, and then we will proceed with voting. So I think it's important for us to take a few moments to reflect on how we got here. The lands in question were specifically annexed from the MD of Bighorn decades ago by the town of Canmore for the purposes of future development. They are private lands, and the question has never been if they'd be developed, but rather when. Of course, in 1992, there was an NRCB decision with respect to these lands, and the MGA has had a rule for some time, since the early 2000s, that any planning application that aligns with an NRCB decision must be approved. That's Section 619. In 2021, in deciding to oppose the TSMV applications, Council essentially decided that the application did not align with the NRCB, and therefore it had the discretion to approve or deny the application. Of course, TSMV appealed the decision to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, which, while it itself is new, before that it would have been the Municipal Government Board, I believe, but there was a body that there was always going to be an appeal to. This is not new. And the LPR ultimately agreed with the applicants that their application was aligned with the NRBC decision. The town of Canmore then exercised its legal rights and sought leave to the Court of Appeal, which was approved. And of course, we all know the result of the actual appeal itself, and that was the dismissal of the town's appeal on all grounds. In order to fend off the mandamus application, which would have required adopting of the orders before the appeal was heard, the town agreed it would not appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada, which was really giving away nothing, as an appeal would never have been successful for the reasons stated in Mr. Driedzik's report. At every step of the way, the rules were known and followed. Legal rights were exercised and due process followed. So here we are today with a court order compelling approval of these ASPs. There's been some concerns expressed about democracy. Now, it's important to recognize that constitutionally, municipalities are not recognized as a third order of government. Municipalities are created by the province and operate only in accordance with the powers given to them under the MGA. Section 619 is a very thin exception to the powers of the municipality's planning authority, in that it only relates to decisions made by another provincial body. I say thin, as it is extremely rare that this happens. And this is the only time I'm aware of this type of case. Of course, it stands to reason that the same powers would not be delegated to two different provincially created bodies. An elected provincial government created the rules, everyone was aware of the rules for many years, and the rules were followed. I would add that the public hearings are not a plebiscite. It's always in Council's discretion, in every public hearing, to make its decision, and it may or may not go along with those who were the majority speaking. I do have a concern about the process being labeled undemocratic. I may not like it that we don't get to have discretion on absolutely everything, but those are the rules put in place by the provincial government, and we are created by the provincial government. The municipality must follow the rules set down by the democratically elected provincial government. Now, the community is certainly divided on this issue. There are some who have no problem with the ASPs, and there are others who want to see no development whatsoever. Of course, no development whatsoever is not an option available to the municipality. As noted, it has always been a question of when, not if. When the public hearing was held on this matter, most people expressed concerns about aspects of the development, and not development as a whole. But those things that people were concerned about differed greatly. I should note a few people have suggested that we vote no or resign, which is easy for someone who has not been elected and has a fiduciary duty to the municipality to uphold to say. It's also easy for someone who is not subject to a code of conduct or obligations under the MGA. It's easy for someone who does not face legal ramifications, whether that be contempt of court or potential civil liability or bolstering lawsuits already against the municipality. And what would be accomplished by such? Nothing. The ASBs would still get implemented, but only after municipal affairs comes in to handle things, which will serve no one. What it would do is potentially interfere with all the good, bold work being done by this council in alignment with the strategic plan. Looking to other councillors who would like to speak. Councillor Ma.
Okay, today is proof positive how the past can come back to haunt you. I want everyone to take a moment and think back to where they were in 1992. Some of you guys might have been born yet. Myself, I was an awkward 16-year-old teenager in Calgary, fixated on meeting girls and going snowboarding. But that was also the year when an NRCB decision was made for the Three Sisters lands. Never before had an NRCB decision delved into the realm of municipal planning. However, Canmore citizens at the time drew comfort from the NRCB decision. It explicitly stated that any development could be denied by the town if they did not feel it was the right fit. Fast forward to 2020, and we are in the grips of a global pandemic. Like everywhere else in the world, Canmore has been turned upside down. People felt scattered, isolated, and scared. And in this time of societal upheaval and instability, new ASPs were brought forth by TSM-VPL. What happened next was the historic 6-day public hearing, 6 days of people taking the time, figuring out Zoom, and voicing their concerns. A vast array of presentations were brought forth, ranging from the simplistic, which is fine, to the sophisticated. And each presenter showed their love and concern for the future of our town. This is the Canmore I am proud of. For everyone who took the time to engage, I applaud your courage and willingness to participate. Thank you. Thank you for caring. Thank you for speaking up. And that marathon public hearing highlighted our community's challenges. People were tired of seeing their friends, family, priced out of the community, so they spoke out for a deep need for true, real affordability. Our wildlife corridor teeters on the brink of functionality, and iconic species such as grizzly are at serious threat of disappearing. The Stoney Nakoda, our indigenous neighbors, were not adequately consulted. Their cultural connection to these lands for hunting and medicine has been disregarded. Many of these Three Sisters lands are severely undermined. People are concerned for safety, rightly so, and the extreme financial risk being offloaded onto the town. Climate change, wildfire mitigation, emergency response, equity, diversity, all these issues and more were brought forth. And so after 6 days of public hearing, the council of the day deliberated and voted down both ASPs. It was a momentous day, and I feel that council made the right decision. In response, TSM-VPL sued the town and that council personally for $161 million. And this lawsuit continues to hang over each and every one of them and us as well as Canmorites. Remember that 1992 decision by the NRCP that was meant to protect us? A few years afterwards, the Conservative government passed Section 619, and it stated that if an application is consistent with an NRCB ruling, it must be passed. So that NRCB decision, which was supposed to protect us, was now a trap. So in a perversion of the original intent of the NRCB, the ASPs were placed in front of the LPRT, Land and Property Rights Tribunal, a group of appointed individuals with no personal connection to our community's challenges now held decision-making power that surpassed Canmore's elected representatives. The public hearing had been silenced. All of the complex issues of our community, the real, on-the-ground, day-to-day challenges that we face, were now dismissed under the simplistic, myopic lens of property rights. Affordability, the environment, wildlife connectivity, truth and reconciliation, climate change, social justice, inclusivity, meaningless compared to property rights. So, we lost. I rewatched Dave Taylor's final presentation in that 6-day public hearing, and he mentions how he takes pride in creating neighborhoods. But Mr. Taylor, we don't need neighborhoods. We need communities, functioning, inclusive communities. The type of communities that were alluded to in the public hearing. You have the power to do that. Consider this opportunity before you. So here we are, October 24th, 2023. I'm 47 years old, got a family, I'm on town council. And I want to be clear, I still do not believe these ASPs are good for our community. And it goes against my values to vote for them. But for me to vote against these ASPs would have me in contempt of court. This exposes me to severe legal consequences, such as fines, possible imprisonment, lawsuits, and removal from this council. It's more than about me. To not have these ASPs pass unanimously puts my fellow councillors who have been sued at great financial risk. And likewise, we, the town, us, the taxpayers, are also in serious jeopardy. So this is a time where I must sacrifice personal values to protect those that I care about. As an elected official, it is my sworn duty to protect my fellow councillors, this town, all of us, from unjust additional suffering. I would also like to express my regret to the Stoney Nakoda. Our hands have been tied by the provincial government, but know that we'll try to continue and do our best to be your ally. Our provincial government's framework has failed us. The NRCB decision has failed us. The LPRT has failed us. It's a dark chapter for Canmore, but I believe this is a long story with much still to be written. This community is resilient. We are survivors. Please do not fall into the trap of cynicism. Instead, I ask all of you to stay vigilant, stay creative, stay optimistic, and be kind with each other as we find ways to move forward. Thank you.
I appreciate the words, appreciate the support, but let's please refrain from any response to any of the statements made, please. Would either of you like to speak? Councillor Graham?
Thank you, Your Worship. Democracy. I got into my first real fist fight in junior high. Some kid was picking on another kid and just wouldn't stop. For some reason, the teacher just turned a blind eye. It went on for weeks. I got to the point where I wasn't having any more of it, and if the teacher wouldn't deal with it, I would. We took it out back. I ended up with a black eye, but made my point and the bullying stopped. I guess that fight set the tone for the better part of my life. Fight the good fight, but never think you'll come out unscathed. 2 years ago, we witnessed the most moving display of democracy. Our town stood up in solidarity, one after another, for 6 full days to eloquently express themselves in what became known as the public hearing. Nothing like it had ever happened in Alberta municipal politics, nor has anything like it happened since. Council did exactly what it should have done in a democratic society and reflected the views of the people when it voted down the ASPs. That was the democracy that I had dreamed of on full display. This is the sequence that followed. Step 1, TSM-VPL hired the legal team that literally wrote the book on Alberta planning law. Then they sued the council that made the decision against the ASPs. A council with a pecuniary interest can't vote on a matter, and this is why you only see 4 of us here today. 3 of them are still in legal actions with TSM-VPL. Next, go to a provincially appointed tribunal where property rights are its forefront and mandate, the LPRT. The tribunal chose to hold up a 30-year-old and widely interpretable decision with no timestamp made by another provincially appointed board, the NRCB. In fact, this was just their second decision ever, and they have never weighed in on a similar issue since. There is no precedent for the NRCB decision holding 30 years. There has never been an issue like TSMV in the history of Alberta land use planning legislation that I'm aware of. Meanwhile, the province's decision around the dimensions of the wildlife corridor abruptly changed in 2019 after the provincial election. The approved wildlife corridor became much smaller than what science had recommended. The man in charge of that decision quit the very next day. 6 days of public hearings, thousands of signatures, incredible public demonstrations, democratic elections, all a facade. Truth be told, we never had a choice. Section 619 and the NRCB made sure of that. How can we ever ask the people to engage in this so-called democratic process ever again? What powers does a locally elected council actually have? The question is, what do we do now? Well, that's up to the four of us left at this desk to decide. If the law wants to be respected, it has to be respectable. There can be a big difference between legally onside and morally or ethically offside. History knows of, and we have all witnessed, way too many examples where the law was wrong. Not only was the law wrong, but but those in power stood by and just threw up their hands. What can we do, they would say. And to that I would reply, if not you, then who? And now I sit as a democratically elected official in that exact position. Every day from now until my last, I will look at myself in the mirror with all the decisions I've made. I go into every decision we have to make with an open mind, but that does not mean that we all don't have strong positions on certain issues. Democracy demands that when processes or policies are unjust, that we, the policymakers, revisit them and not turn a blind eye, simply pass them because that is the pragmatic and easy thing to do. If what we witnessed 2 years ago was the gold standard of democracy, then this day is the complete and exact opposite. We won't even be having a public hearing today. I am not against triple bottom line responsible development. This council is on pace to approve more housing for locals than any other council in recent memory. 1,300 units in Palace are at second reading, an ASP that took less than 12 months to get approval, by the way. 100+ units at LGMS, and a few dozen smaller projects. If this ASP would have respected the science-backed wildlife corridors, if it would have respected the cabin line, if it would not have ignored the serious undermining liabilities placed upon this town and its citizens, if it would have reasonably consulted our Indigenous relations, and if it would have built the housing that we need to address our housing crisis, then I personally would have been supportive, and I believe the citizens of this town would have been too. We would have embraced it with open arms and pride, but it didn't. And this is what completely baffles me. This truly could have been and should have been a legacy project, one we all could have been incredibly proud of, world class. That was the opportunity that we lost. There would be serious consequences for an opposed vote, but I say that if we never had a choice, then why was this document ever even brought before council? Are we just a rubber stamp? If this is not our decision to make, then let those who it is make it. The province can and should answer to the citizens of this town. By voting against this ASP today, we would send it back to the province, who continually insists on meddling in municipal affairs anyways, just like they claim Ottawa does to them. Yes, we would be charged with contempt of court, possibly spend time in jail. We may be fined. We could even be removed from office. Yesterday, I learned that even if I alone was to vote against this plan, I would be added, or could be added, to a $161 million lawsuit, and it would be strengthened by my dissension, even if the ASP is passed. But I will not be their fall guy. My conscience will be clear. My values held firm. And I will know that I did everything I could to represent the people of this town. To the citizens of this town, I know you are disillusioned with democracy, disheartened with this decision, and very angry. I am too. And you have every right to be. We fought the good fight, and we came up short. I can't feel but help that I let you down. I'm sorry. We will forge on. The environmental future and social ecology that makes this place so special depends on it. To our administration, your efforts have not gone unnoticed. Be proud of how you conducted yourselves. I've watched you take the high road at every opportunity. I've watched you do your best to navigate this legal quagmire with dignity and pride. We will learn from our mistakes, and we will be stronger as a result. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Hold on, I'm not done.
Okay. Please proceed then.
Thank you. Finally, I plead to our provincial government, Premier Smith. I also ask our MLA, Sarah Amaligi, whom I know isn't here in chambers with us today. Take our voices to Edmonton. Premier, hear our valid and widely held concerns of these Albertans. Help us find resolution that meaningfully addresses their concerns, gives certainty to our future, and I think most importantly, restores faith in the democratic process. If your intent is to double tourism, then I would strongly encourage you to protect that initiative by preserving the fundamental values that this town and this province hold so dear and you want to expose the world to. I have 4 options here today. A vote in support. It passes and we continue to do the good work that we've been doing and have got in front of us. A vote in opposition. It passes. I'm potentially added to and strengthen a serious civil lawsuit. I'm issued a code of conduct complaint and I could be removed from office. Honestly, if it weren't for the significant financial implications to some of my fellow council members in this town, this is the option I would choose. Walk out and protest. We lose quorum for today. It passes a week later. Passive-aggressive isn't my style. I resign and protest. It passes a week later and someone else sits at this desk. I know this option would give a select few folks great pleasure. I will not even contemplate giving them that satisfaction. What I want to do versus what I have to do, a court order. I think there are moments in everyone's life where we might struggle with this, minus the provincial court order. Nobody will be more disappointed in today's decision than myself and Councillor Ma. If I had unanimous support of this council to defeat this court order, I would vote that way today. But it would be unfair to have my colleagues charged with contempt of court against their will. Thus, voting in opposition isn't a reasonable option for me today. 2 years ago to the day, I swore an oath. I, Wade Graham, solemnly affirm that I will diligently and to the best of my ability execute according to the law the office of Councillor of the town of Canmore. Onward.
Thank you. Please. Councillor Faubert.
Thank you, Mayor Crowsert, to my colleagues for their well thought out and heartfelt words. I definitely am in line with the remarks of the mayor, so I will be brief. I believe that the last council and this council have done our best to listen to the needs of our community, and we've exhausted all reasonable options to represent the wishes of our citizens. Those efforts did not result in the outcomes I believe many in our community want to see, but that does not mean that this decision of the Court of Appeal or the Land and Property Rights Tribunal is invalid or undemocratic. We are a municipality. We are not an independent city-state. We are only created out of the Municipal Government Act and the province of Alberta, and the decisions of the province of Alberta binds us. And decisions were made within our lifetimes, but not within our recent memory, that now are coming into effect, that perhaps not everyone agrees with. And that's a difficult situation and has created a lot of conflict. I believe that by going to the Court of Appeal and by pursuing all of our legal reasonable options, that we have taken it as far as we can. And now the only way forward is to turn the page and to accept the decision that has been made by the court. And I know that's going to be hard, and I know that's not what some people want. But we don't have it. That's not no other option is available to us. And so I'm a pragmatist, and I truly believe that our community, our council, our administration, our municipal government, that we can navigate the future and still achieve the outcomes and meet the values of our community. I personally believe that the most effective area that we can dedicate our time and attention to is managing human use. And that is something that we can do. And it doesn't have to be, it's not all about just one development area. It's an overarching issue across the entire landscape that affects connectivity and wildlife coexistence within the region. So that is where I believe, and I personally feel, that my commitment to achieve what I believe that I heard the community wanted will be, because that's the only place that I now can do that work. So I really want to encourage a lot of like integration and working through the feelings. I don't know what that might look like individually, but I know as a community, this is a tough moment. And I just want to acknowledge and validate that for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And thank you to all of you for speaking incredibly well from the heart. I'm extremely proud of this council, including those who are not able to sit here today. We have, as noted by I think all of us, embarked on some very good work. And we're not going to stop doing that good work, and we're not going to stop encouraging the best use of land, encouraging human-wildlife coexistence, encourage protecting of corridors, and encouraging building the communities, the neighborhoods that we need. So we're now going to move to voting. We're going to do a different, a little bit of a different system. After I call each motion, we will be voting with our microphones today. Light on if you're in favor, leave it off if you're not. So moving to the first with the Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan. I move that council give first reading to Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Bylaw 2022-05. All those in favor? I see 4 lights, carried unanimously. I move that council, turn them off now. I move that council give second reading to Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Bylaw 2021-05. All those in favor? 4 lights, motion's carried. I move that council give leave to go to third reading of Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Bylaw 2021-05. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move that council give third reading to Three Sisters Village Area Structure Plan Bylaw 2021-05. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move that council give first reading to Smith Creek Area Structure Plan Bylaw 2021-06. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Move that council give second reading to Smith Creek Area Structure Plan Bylaw 2021-06. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move that council give leave to go to third reading of Smith Creek Area Structure Plan Bylaw 2021-06. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move that council give third reading to Smith Creek Area Structure Plan Bylaw 2021-06. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move that council give first reading to Municipal Development Plan Amendment 2023-34, Three Sisters Village and Smith Creek. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move that council give second reading to Municipal Development Plan Amendment 2023-34, Three Sisters Village and Smith Creek. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move that council give leave to go to third reading of Municipal Development Plan Amendment 2023-34, Three Sisters Village and Smith Creek. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And finally, I move that council give third reading to Municipal Development Plan Amendment 2023-34, Three Sisters Village and Smith Creek. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Just before adjourning, and I'm sorry that some had to leave. I know it's very hard for some. This is not the end. It is a new beginning, and likely on several fronts. It's a new chapter, and I remain hopeful. It's time to look forward, and I ask that please, as we do so, please focus on the issues, not the people, and please remain civil. I now move adjournment. All those in favor? Carried unanimously.